Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I'm actually able to hear myself now. It's amazing what happens when you unmute your microphone. So I'm actually recording in a little different setup than normal. Normally, I will take my laptop out of the LRN studios and go into the Nautilus, and I've got to set up and record from there. But I'm having computer problems, so I'm actually recording on the LRN computer. And you know, I'm not normally recording this podcast in here, so yeah, a little different. But different is sometimes good, right? It's not bad, at least in this scenario. Now, it is an Ask Me Anything, and I will get into the questions here in just a second. But I did mention that I'm having computer problems, so it's not anything major. I'm still able to use my computer, but after I recorded the show on Monday, the battery ran down a little bit more than I normally like the battery on my laptop to run down. When I plugged it in, I was getting this flashy amber light of not charging. Oh, well, what's the problem here? Let me try unplugging the battery. Maybe there's a bad connection. So I unplugged the battery, took the can air spray thing and blew it out, make sure there's no dust, put it back in, plug it in, still the flashy amber thing. So I turned to the internet, because the internet is just full of infinite wisdom, right? So I turned to the internet of how to make flashy light go away. That's not actually what I typed into a search engine, but that's you get the point. So I'm finding all these various things, and well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this other thing. Could be a bad battery, which is what I suspected. But someone suggested, and this wasn't something that I stumbled across on a internet forum somewhere. It was somebody in a tech group that I'm part of. They suggested, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but maybe it's the actual power charger itself. Well, I had already ordered a battery. Might as well just spend $20, get a power charger as well. The power charger came in, replaced that. Nope, still got the flashy light. The battery has not yet arrived. Unexpected shipping delay. Probably getting that on Monday, I hope. Fingers crossed. So hopefully I'll be back in my normal setup on Monday to record. But again, just a little bit of behind the scenes, if you will. Now let's jump into the questions. First question, again, as I believe the first question was last week. I know one of the questions last week came from Scott McDonald of the ANCAP Barbershop. Scott writes, Darryl, did you enjoy SummerSlam? My friend Jonathan has been bugging me to ask you about it, so I thought I would. I somehow lost my place there, so I paraphrased a little bit of what the question was. Apologies, Scott. He then says, I have a few episodes in my podcatcher, so if you already talked about this, please ignore me. Thanks, dude. Well, I did not talk about SummerSlam. SummerSlam being a WWF pay-per-view. Technically, I don't think they're calling them pay-per-views anymore because, well, you get them for free on the network, and I don't know if they're actually, selling them to cable companies or not. I think they're just considering them like special events, although the Wikipedia still has it listed as pay-per-view. And again, Wikipedia is never, ever wrong. Not ever. Not ever, ever, ever. And, of course, if you can't tell, I was being sarcastic there. But I digress. So I will answer what I thought of SummerSlam, and I'll actually give kind of a lengthy review. And this is probably going to be the last time that I talk about wrestling on this podcast. Take a moment to mourn. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to talk about wrestling. I definitely will. I'm actually working on creating a wrestling-themed podcast that I will probably, at this point, probably only do the week before the pay-per-view / special events for WWE. I have been getting into New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I've caught a couple of episodes of Ring of Honor Wrestling, so I might wind up incorporating some of that in some kind of way, but expect a completely separate Patreon for the wrestling podcast that, as of right now, I'm planning to call the Penguin Club Podcast. It's going to be the podcast that's just too sweet to miss. So look for that. First episode I am planning to release next Friday, the 22nd of September, because on September 24th, there is another pay-per-view, that being No Mercy. So, question was, Darryl, what did you think of SummerSlam? And yes, I'm intentionally giving a long answer here because I only have one other question that I can answer very briefly. So, SummerSlam as a whole was an okay show. It wasn't one of the greatest shows, even though I know that WWE is trying to make SummerSlam to be the biggest party of the summer, and they're hyping it up as sort of, the next best pay-per-view behind WrestleMania, even though, in my opinion, Royal Rumble should be that number 2 spot, simply because the winner of the Royal Rumble winds up getting a title shot at WrestleMania. So you have Royal Rumble, and then a month later, month and a half-ish, depending on how things fall on the calendar, you have WrestleMania. I really wish, and this is something that I will probably delve into at some point in an episode of the Penguin Club podcast, I really wish that WWE would get rid of the pay-per-views between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and just have a big 6-week build-up to WrestleMania instead of, and now we're throwing a curveball with this pay-per-view, and ha ha ha, we swerved ya. More thoughts. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And I'm answering the question, Darryl, what did you think about SummerSlam? And again, SummerSlam being a WWE pay-per-view. So I was saying, as a whole, it was an okay pay-per-view. If it were an episode of Raw or an episode of SmackDown, it would be a really, really, really good episode. Really long episode, 13 matches, 3 of them on the pre-show. And I will say that my predictions didn't turn out that good. I do, however, think that the NXT takeover event that happened the night before SummerSlam. Better show than SummerSlam. And that's actually kind of become tradition, that NXT TakeOver Brooklyn that happens the night before SummerSlam in the same arena tends to be a better show. Now, it could be that the show is a little shorter. It could be that the way NXT does their product, and yes, I know NXT is part of WWE, but it's considered that developmental territory, and they have more time to work on the matches and the storylines, whereas WWE every week, it's storyline, pay-per-view every couple of weeks. TakeOver has more time to build up to make sure that they put their best foot forward, and well, sometimes that best foot I think has been better than WWE's main roster foot the following night. That aside, I did not watch the pre-show because, again, this was an incredibly long show. I think it was, if you include the pre-show, 5, maybe 6 hours. I think it was closer to 6 hours of a show. Didn't watch the pre-show, which means that a lot of the people in attendance at the Barclays Center, they were right there with me, not watching the pre-show, because the first match, The Miz and The Miz-Taraj, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel. The Miz, by the way, former member of The Real World and The Real World versus Road Rules. The MTV reality show thing. Yeah, that guy, he's been a pro wrestler for the last dozen years. He wrestled along, again, with Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel against Jason Jordan and the Hardy Boys. Sort of last-minute thrown-together match because the team that the Hardys had been feuding with wound up getting hurt, so they threw this together. And it basically turned into an empty arena match because there was some miscommunication, I think is probably the best way to describe this, between WWE and the Barclays Center, where the pre-show started at, I believe it was 5 o'clock. And what time do you think the doors open to the Barclays Center? If you said something before 5 o'clock, you would be incorrect. They opened the doors at 5 o'clock for a pre-show that started at 5 o'clock. And WWE, again, in their infinite wisdom, decided to have a match at the exact moment that the pre-show started, meaning there were, from reports that I've heard, about a dozen people in the arena when the match began, which, again, basically an empty arena match. And apparently The Miz not happy about the fact that there were so few people in the arena. Next match was Neville versus Akira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight title. Again, not a match that I saw. And Neville, after having lost the title 6 days prior, wound up beating Tozawa to regain the title. The Usos, being Jimmy and Jay Uso, the sons of Rikishi, wound up defeating the New Day, and there's rumors that the New Day are being sort of primed to wind up having won more WWE tag team titles than any other tag team in history, even though they lost the titles back about a month ago at SummerSlam. They recently re-won them, putting them now at, I believe, 4-time SmackDown Tag Team Champions. The main show started with John Cena defeating Baron Corbin in a match that, according to Wikipedia, was over 10 minutes long. I don't really remember a lot about the match other than John Cena, mocking Baron Corbin throughout the match a couple times. He was definitely having fun during the match. Some kind of gag with JBL's hat. And by the way, I'm very glad that JBL's no longer on commentary. Hope that he just goes away and stays in Bermuda where he lives. Because according to reports, he's a big giant bully. Which means that JBL is going to be the first person to be put on the banned list from the Penguin Club podcast. Preemptive ban for life. JBL, not welcome. The second person that, and again, I don't plan to do interviews, but if I ever start doing them, JBL, never welcome on the podcast. Another person that's never welcome is Sexy Star, a AAA female wrestler who apparently sort of, took things into her own hands. She thought that somebody was getting a little stiff with her, and instead of going after the person that was being stiff with her, wound up going after someone else in the match. It was a 4-way match, which means that, she basically had her pick of 3 other people, and Rosemary, I think it was, had offered an arm for an armbar submission move, tapped out. Well, Sexy Star, instead of breaking the hold after, being told, she submitted, wound up cranking on the arm. Initial reports were she broke the arm. Now I think it was just like a severe tear of some kind of tendon, muscle, something in the elbow. Still not cool. Sexy Star, you are also banned for life. Putting me in good company, actually, because Chris Jericho banned her for life from his podcast, Talk is Jericho. Not sure how I went off on that. Oh, right, because of JBL. John Cena sort of goofing around with his hat. Next was Natalya versus Naomi. Natalya won the women's championship. Total surprise. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Very surprised that Carmella did not wind up cashing in the women's Money in the Bank match. And then things kind of got interesting. A little bit, maybe not too exciting. There were really only a couple of really good matches on this card. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to BIPCOT.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com.
Hi, this is Roger Paxton from the Lava Flow Podcast, the Free Coast Freecast, and Pax Libertas Productions, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com, talking about the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Why? Well, because someone asked what my thoughts are, and because this is an Ask Me Anything where you can ask me anything, and I will answer the questions. Now, the answer might be, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that, but I'll definitely answer the question. And if it's, something that I really like and can delve into, I will delve into it fairly deeply. And again, going over that SummerSlam card where there were really only a couple of really good matches. But before I continue, I want to make sure that I tell you about Roberts & Roberts Brokerage, where their entire selection of precious metals is really, really good. And they've been around for over 40 years. That's right. Since 1977, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also have platinum and palladium. And they accept Bitcoin for precious metal purchases. And they've permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals. That's right. You want to buy some precious metals? Call up Roberts & Roberts. You have some precious metals you want to turn into cash for some reason? Call Roberts & Roberts. Again, they're a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals and forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760, or visit online at rrbi.co. That's 800-874-9760 or rrbi.co. Going through the rest of the SummerSlam card here, the next match was Big Cass versus The Big Show. Big Cass, former best friend and tag team partner with Enzo Amore, who was suspended above the ring in a shark cage. And everybody kind of suspected, all right, Enzo's going to do something kind of weird, like drop a weapon, but instead of Big Show getting the weapon, Big Cass will get the weapon. Turns out Enzo Amore was the weapon. Yeah, that's right. Skinny little guy decides to try squeezing through the bars on the shark cage. Can't get out. Let me take off all of my clothes except for my underpants and pour some baby oil. Yeah, he had a bottle of baby oil on him that he poured on himself, and then he was able to shimmy out of the cage and then drop down out of the cage and immediately wound up eating a boot from Big Cass. So a bunch of people are asking, what was the point? Big Cass defeated The Big Show, so, sort of getting a bump there. Unfortunately, the following night, Big Cass wound up legitimately injuring one of his knees in, what they call that, a Brooklyn street fight, and so he's going to be out for a while. Another question where people are asking, what's the point? Randy Orton defeated Rusev in less than 10 seconds. Sasha Banks defeated Alexa Bliss in a WWE Raw Women's Championship match, only to wind up losing a couple nights later and continuing the tradition of Sasha Banks never being able to successfully defend her women's title, which I think is actually setting up something big to where I think the next time she wins it, it's going to be pointed out, because it got pointed out, I think it was the following night on Raw after Sasha Banks won. Yeah, well, she never successfully defends the thing. So I think they're pushing to where the next time she wins, well, she never successfully defends, and then she's going to wind up successfully defending. Hopefully that's at Survivor Series, hopefully. And then I would love to see Carmella cross brands and cash in the Money in the Bank. Not sure that'll necessarily happen, but would love to see it. Also, rumors that Asuka is going to join Raw after she winds up healing from a broken collarbone. Next match was Finn Balor, the Demon King, versus Bray Wyatt. Finn Balor winning. And now we got into three good matches out of the final four. Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins successfully reuniting as two-thirds of the Shield, defeating Sheamus and Cesaro for the Raw Tag Team Championships. AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens, always a good match. I wish they could fight every show, because they just always put on a good match, except for when there's screwy finishes, which there have been a few of. Jinder Mahal wound up retaining over Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke wound up getting a beatdown from Jinder's homies, the Singh brothers. And then in what is one of the best WWE matches of the year, Brock Lesnar retained, surprisingly, in a fatal four-way against Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman. Braun power-slammed Brock through two tables, flipped another table, big giant announce table, flipped on top of Brock. Brock gets taken away by EMTs or medical officials, and I'm using air quotes there, and then just comes back because he's a beast. That's actually what they call it, the Beast Brock Lesnar. And wound up Braun Strowman, who put him through a couple of tables, wound up taking metal steps to the head, legitimately getting cracked open. I don't think he was concussed. But the monster among men is going to be fighting Brock Lesnar coming up at No Mercy in just a couple of weeks. Or actually, no, that's next weekend. So you'll get my preview of that on Friday on episode 1 of the Penguin Club podcast. More questions that I will answer coming up in the closing moments.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, answering your questions because that's what I do on Fridays. I answer your questions. You can send those over anonymously, pseudo-anonymously, not at all anonymously. I'm not really sure what the word would be for that. Transparently, I guess. You go to ama.fppradio.com. The form asks for a name and an email address. It doesn't have to be your name. It doesn't have to be your email address. It doesn't even have to be a real name or a real email address. So if you want, you could claim that Barack Obama were asking me a question by putting Barack Obama as the name. And this is not my real email address at thisisnotarealwebsite.com if you wanted to. And I would never know who you are because I know there's ways that, if you really want to, you can look at IP addresses, blah, 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 blah. I'm not that interested in trying to figure out who's asking me questions. But again, send those over, ama.fppradio.com. Final question. And this actually didn't come in as an AMA, but I responded to the person, hey, if you don't mind, I'll answer as an AMA. Was just wondering if you'd considered running with Kokesh for president, either as VP or P candidate. Not sure if you guys agree on the issues. Was just suggesting the idea. I also don't know if he's running for LP or not, and if you were running for LP or not. At this point, I have no plans to run in 2020 as either a presidential candidate or a vice presidential candidate. As far as being part of Adam Kokesh's team, at one point, I had expressed some interest in volunteering to help him on his campaign with some stuff. And then there, was basically a big giant shakeup to where he got rid of a bunch of volunteers, a fair number of volunteers that had worked on my 2016 campaign that went to work for his. And then he wound up, I don't want you doing this thing that I had hired you to do or told you that I was going to put you in charge of. We're just going to change everything around and blah, 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 blah. And now you're doing stuff that you don't feel comfortable doing. Oh, well, that's too bad. You're fired now. So I'm not a fan of the way he's running his campaign. So I have no plans to, at this point, again, either run myself or endorse anyone. Now, people have asked, Darryl, will you run? What will it take for you to run? What will it take? I said start a draft committee, raise $50,000. So we'll see.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.